Did you hear about that joke at the if you want to call it a joke at the Trump rally about Puerto Rico? Because I was, your mother was Puerto Rican.
Yeah, yeah. My mother is. Both her parents are born in Puerto Rico, although she was born in New York City. And I heard the joke. No, I'm a big fan of comedians in general,
Yeah, yeah.
and uh, I. It's not the first thing that I would do. Would take a sentence out of a comedian's act and then pass judgment on a sentence. I haven't seen the full bit yet, and so I'd want to see the full bit before I officially comment. But if the full bit does not make that work, it would be hard to imagine how you could. Then that's just, does he really feel that way, or is he acting, right? I've spoken with some comedians, and there's an interesting perspective that I think most people don't carry. If you look at an actor, have scripted lines and they perform for you. You can have an actor who portrays a Ku Klux Klan member or Hitler or any other Nazi. You don't then, at the end of the filming, say, "Oh, I hate you because you were an actor playing." You don't say that because they're an actor. So I've spoken to some comedians to say when they're on stage, they are performing the way an actor performs, and so they should be allowed to say what they want, and you should be able to judge it as a performance. And I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. I'd never considered that before, because we want to believe that the comedians are speaking truth from their heart about what they actually think and believe. And I don't think that's always the case. But if he ever has any thought about Puerto Rico being a floating island of garbage, I think that's what the quote. Yeah. By the way, islands don't float. They're attached to the bottom of at the bottom of the ocean. They're connected to Earth's crust. So islands don't float, just to make a scientific correction there. But yeah, I mean, if people feel that way, then vote accordingly, right? I mean, I don't know why people are making such a big deal over things such as that when if it offends you, your power is at the poll. So why get all bent out of shape over it, right?
I think it's the what we've seen from Donald Trump. I think it's just this history of racism from him. The rally in general said some really hateful things from people who weren't even comedians. To have that at a rally, I think that's what it is, the collective of what Trumpism has been.
That's why there's a ballot box, right? So,
yeah, that's true.
So,
that's true.
I think for me, where the rubber hits the road is not what any politician or speaker says at a rally. What, for me, where the rubber hits the road is if after they say what they did, 80 million people still vote for him, then your issue is not with the politicians. Your issue is with, a fourth of your fellow countrymen. Okay?
That is true.
Or
folks who aren't voting.
As an educator,
the largest voting bloc is a non-voter.
Yeah, but then they're not going to influence the election. So,
right.
So for me, as an educator, I have never badmouthed a politician. Here's my best example, where I helped me to realize this. I'm in Washington, D.C., at the Rayburn office building, where the House of Representatives hangs out. And there's a room where the science committee meets. Very nicely appointed room. There's like artwork of famous scientists of the past. So you get in the mood when you go in, and the science committee deliberates. One of the members of the science committee at the time, maybe still today, I don't remember, but at the time was a young Earth creationist. In other words, Earth began 6,000 years ago, as described by the Bible. That person was on the Congressional Science Committee. Okay, not the Religion Committee, not the Genesis in, Bible Committee, the Science Committee. And I wanted to sort of grab him by the lapel and say, you realize this is not side. And then I thought about it and I said, wait a minute. We have a representative republic, a democracy. And so if he thinks that way about the origin of the Earth, it's because his electorate thinks that way. That's the issue here. Okay? And they want representation in the science committee. So I, as an educator, I'm duty bound to alert people what is the difference between a biblical account of the natural world and a scientific account? So that when people rise to power and they have power over laws and legislation, they're not invoking the personal truths of a religion that would then hold everyone else incumbent upon following those rules, who might not be that religion or have no religion at all.
Yeah.
It's an argument for, if you're going to have laws, they should be based on objective truths, because
Right.
it's only objective truths that apply to everyone. Anything else
I
is
do
just
think it's
cultural
I'm sorry.
anything else is just cultural or religious or your personal truths. Yeah.
But I do think it's sad, Mr. Tyson, that
Call me Neil, please.
racism. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do think it's sad, though, that racism, whether it's the Southern strategy, the welfare queen narrative, a Willie Horton ad, has worked to win elections. You know, I hear you as far as people voting, but it's so heartbreaking that, you know, decades later, these tactics incentivize certain groups of people. That's perplexing to me. It's sad.
And is it the fault of politicians? Maybe, but like I said, they are people who live and work among us in the same country. And so, by the way, my father was active in the civil rights movement, and he'd come home. We lived in New York City, you know, in the 1960s, right? And he'd come home, and I knew the stuff he had seen that day, or what was going down, and especially in 1968 with the assassination of Martin Luther King, and inner cities were burning, although New York City was not, I might add. And I think my father actually had something to do with that. But he would come home, and he was never bitter, nor my mother. It was, you know, we would see the hoses on the freedom marchers in the South, you know, the water hoses and the dogs and with the bomb in the church, and we'd see this, and they were never bitter. It was, they don't know any different. They were raised that way, and I have to assume they felt this, and they were not just trying to hide their deep feelings or bottle them up. But even if they were bottling up their feelings, the idea that if someone feels a certain way, that's the product of whatever happened in their lives. And so open up a dialogue with them. Don't cancel them. You cancel them, does that make them go away? Yeah, in your head, maybe, but not in the world. So you open up a conversation. You make it easy to have a conversation. One of the things I do with Merlin is I try to make it easy for you to say, this was fun to learn, and I want to learn more now, rather than, I got to take my medicine, and I got to. So it takes effort, social, cultural effort, to open up dialogue with people, especially those who you disagree with.
I wanted to ask you, a while back, you made some comments about trans people in sports, and you said we have to figure that out. There are ways to figure this out. It was really just, important to say. And you got so much backlash for that. It was just a lot of backlash. Were you surprised that you got, as a scientist, that kind of backlash for just saying we have to figure this out when it comes to trans folks in sports?
No, I think what you're remembering, I think what you're remembering is that comment I uttered on Ben Shapiro. Okay. Ben Shapiro is well known for his sort of hardline view on sex and gender and the like. He's very conservative in these perspectives. And I knew in my conversation with him, he would land there. Okay. So here's what happened. We talk about gender, and I say, people want to express themselves as male or female. This is a free country. Somewhere I read that in the United States, there's the pursuit of happiness. If you want to create a law that prevents someone from being in pursuit of their own happiness, then what kind of country do you want to create? That's what I told him. Okay. So then he said, okay, he quickly pivoted and said, well, how about, how about transgender? How about transgender athletes? Okay.
Yeah.
And I said, that's an unsolved problem that people are working on. Okay.
Right.
I might have said unsolved challenge, but I said it's unsolved. Now, here's what happened. In the edit of that program, for the teaser, he said, "What do I think of transgender people?" And I say and they edited it, and I said that's an unsolved problem. Rather than, sorry, he was talking about in sports. We were talking about sports when I said that's an unsolved problem.
Yeah,
it was very targeted to sports, but then it got generalized in the teaser, where he just talks about trans people, and I say that's an unsolved problem, which inflamed everybody. Okay, but people who went to the actual recording will know what I actually said, and in fact,
I saw it,
and in fact, the recording was held up as someone putting Ben Shapiro in his place, and you can find it. It's on some LGBTQ plus sites. They replay that as somebody trying to fight back against Ben. So the backlash that I saw was only because of how they edited the teaser, not among those who, in terms of the backlash, not among those who listened to the full recording.
Yeah, that's
and then I suggested one way you might do it is you don't contest gender, you contest hormone levels. That'd be interesting. Right. Whatever's your mixture of testosterone and whatever is the relevant female hormone that you would, whatever's the ratio of those two, that's what you contest. That could be the future of sports. And then no one is talking about gender at that point. It's all about hormones. And then if someone is naturally high or low in hormones, that you just compete again with your hormone levels, and you're not misplaced within your groupings. And maybe we'll look back on these days as being so ignorant and so short-sighted about how we actually need to solve it. And you might say, well, if you have a lot of hormone levels, that's many more events you'd have to conduct. I used to wrestle. We have 10, there are 10 weight categories, excuse me, and we're all just wrestling.
Mr. Tyson, we're getting ready to get cut off.
Okay.
I'm loving this conversation. Okay. I'm so sorry. But listen, you got to pick up the book, Merlin's Tour of the Universe. It's revised and updated for today. It's available now. It's already blowing up on Amazon. Make sure you pick up and support. It's an honor to have you back on the show. I always love talking to you.